Welcome back to Scotting Movies, everybody. Today we're going to talk about another small independent film that probably many of you have never heard of. We'll talk about its comparisons, performances, whether it holds up or not. This movie is called Moon Over Parador. Um, so let's talk about what it's about first, because I have a lot to get to. Uh, Moon Over Parador stars Richard Dreyfuss as Jack Noah, a second tier actor who finds himself forced into a once in a lifetime opportunity role, impersonating a recently deceased dictator in the fictional country of Parador. He had just finished playing him in a movie. The dictator dies, and the the chief of staff decides rather than let the country fall into anarchy over who's going to be the next dictator, he decides to hire the actor who just played him to play him full time for real. As Jack navigates the power of paranoia and propaganda, he finds himself way in over his head, juggling political chaos, public appearances, and an inconvenient moral compass. Oh, and there's a romance subplot with the dictator's former mistress, because of course there is. It's colorful, it's chaotic, and it's definitely committed to the bit. Let's talk about some of the things. I'm going to start with Richard Dreyfuss. We know the guy can act, right? He's been in Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Goodbye Girl. Here in this movie, he goes full ham sandwich. His performance is big, broad, cartoonish, leaning into slapstick territory. And while that kind of energy may work in a wacky comedy, it just makes it really hard to care about his emotional struggles and his adversity, to take all of that seriously. Is he horrified by what he's doing? Does he feel guilt? Does he want to make changes? I mean, the movie tells us yes, but the performance says, "I'm doing a sketch on SNL, so watch me go." It's just hard to care about a character who's mostly just mugging for the camera, and that's the thing. Richard Dreyfuss isn't bad per se, but he's just playing a version of this character that the rest of the movie doesn't agree with. Um, Here's the big issue: Moon over Parador has no idea what it wants to be. One moment it's a zany fish out of water comedy. The next it's hinting at political satire. Then we get scenes that almost want to be serious, where we're supposed to wrestle with the ethics of impersonating a dictator, but they just never really land because the film hasn't set it up to be that. And so we're not ready as an audience to take parts of it seriously versus parts of it funny. We don't know when to laugh and when to to be serious. The movie hasn't allowed us as the audience to understand what this movie wants to be. It's like the movie knows that it wants to be smart and silly, but instead of blending the two, it just ping pongs between them, and we're left being the net in the middle, watching jokes and serious things fly over our heads. You kind of check out emotionally because it never commits to anything deeper. Um, what does work in this movie? Two performances are fairly good. Raul Julia, because always Raul Julia, as the scheming advisor Roberto Strausmann. He brings a lot of energy to this role. He's sly, he's menacing, he's obviously the the villain in this movie, but he's clearly having a blast with what he's doing. Every time he's on screen, the movie levels up a little bit. He's just fun to watch because he's so slimy and sleazy. Then there's Sonia Braga. She doesn't get a ton to work with. She plays the dictator's former mistress, but she's radiant. Her chemistry with Richard Dreyfuss gives the movie some much needed warmth, even if her character feels sorely underwritten. She's charming, but the movie doesn't give us a whole lot to her character. When she's on screen, she's great, but we wish that the movie would have spent a little bit more time trying to understand who she is because her character is fascinating. Her character's great. Um, I'm going to get to something in a second, but let me talk about the the missed opportunity here. There's this weird thing that this movie is set in a fictional country of Parador. Parador doesn't feel real. It's not real. We know from the beginning this is a fake country. It's all vague palm trees, military uniforms, parade floats. Uh, the satire doesn't land in this because it's too disconnected from reality. Dictatorship, propaganda, media control, like those are big ideas that come from big countries like China or Iraq or Russia or something like that. The movie gestures at them like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we talked about this or if we did that?" And then it doesn't do this or that. It just hints at the fact that these are the things coming from this country. It's not offensive. It's just kind of toothless. It makes the whole thing feel lighter than it should be, and not in a fun way. It's a kind of you'll forget about it next week kind of thing. It would have been so much better if it was set in reality. If it was Mexico or Brazil or something like that. I understand some of the problems with that, like not trying to piss off a country by showing that its president or its dictator is this really horrible person. Uh, but it would have been so much better if it was set in reality, or even if we knew what continent we were on. Uh, and so it's just bad that it's not set in any kind of reality, and so the whole movie feels entirely fake from the beginning. Um, let's talk about the obvious comparison here. In 1993, about 5 years, 6 years, whatever that is, after this movie, um, there was a movie called Dave, where Kevin Kline played a guy who looked incredibly like the president of the United States, and the president uh, died. The real president died of a heart attack while having an affair with a woman, and so the chief of staff of the president finds this guy that looks just like the president, and he has him act as the president, like impersonate him. And as he does so, he begins to see some of the bad things the president has done and some of the policies that he's put into place, and he tries to fix those things while falling in love with the former first lady played by Sigourney Weaver. Obviously, there's huge comparisons here. It's the same movie, just set uh, in a real country, the United States, versus some fictional country. And Richard Dreyfuss plays an actor, while Kevin Kline plays. Um, he puts on these impersonations of the president for money, as well as I think he does a couple other things. Anyway, it's the same exact storyline. And so the problem with Moon over Parador isn't always what the movie does. It's what a movie that came along later did so much better, because Dave is a much better film. It has much better performances. That's much more rounded casts, a much more in-depth portrayals of these people. I mean, Frank Langella plays um, the chief of staff, and he's smarmy but there's more character depth to him than even Raul Julia brought to this role in Moon over Parador. Sigourney Weaver is so much more engaging than Sonia Braga. Uh, it's not always the performances; it's the way the characters were written. And Dave did so much better. I'm probably going to talk about Dave when I do 1993, and I'll reference this again. But the problem with Moon over Parador is that it's naturally going to be compared to a superior movie that did it so much better and that actually set it in a real live setting, and that you feel a lot better about the movie. You feel like you're really a part of it, and it's funnier. Um, so anyway, wrapping up Moon over Parador, uh, it isn't terrible. It's got a few solid laughs. It's a cast that's doing their best. That Raul Julia and Sonia Braga are good. That late '80s political farce energy is good, but it never digs deeper. It never allows us to engage with the material because it's so far removed from reality. Um, and even the performance by Richard Dreyfuss is so far removed from reality that we don't know what to make of it. It doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be. It just ends up being fine, just fine, and sometimes a little less so. It had the pieces to be something funnier, as we saw later when Dave did something much better. Instead, it's the kind of movie that you catch halfway on cable, give it 10 minutes, and then change the channel. So at the end of the day, it's a missed opportunity dressed up in bright colors. What grade am I going to give it? Um, this is a C minus movie, um, a little less than average, and mainly because it has to be compared with a superior movie, and I keep coming back to that fact. But that may not be entirely fair to a movie that was filmed before, but life's not fair. Um, so, have you seen Moon Over Parador? Or have you seen Dave? And I just described the whole plot to you, and you wondered why. Of course, they had to make a movie that was better than the one that I just described. Uh, and so, let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things, and I'll talk to you next time I'm talking about another movie. Okay, thanks everyone.